Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Nagaraj from IIP Digital Media Team. I'll be the host for today's webinar on Path to USA for Physiotherapists with resource person Dr. Shrivalli, being organized by Delhi State IIP Women's Cell. The Indian Association of Physiotherapists is oldest and largest association representing physiotherapists in India since 1955. The IAP Digital Media team consists of a group of physios who handle Zoom platform, webinar, live streaming, and IAP profiles on social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. Follow IAP profiles on these social media to receive notifications for our events such as webinars, workshops, CMEs, conferences, health camps, blood donation drive, and to know about recent update on physiotherapy. Subscribe to IIP YouTube channel for notification of our live webinars. In playlist section of this channel, webinars are segregated into various folders on topics like orthopedics, neurology, sports and fitness, pediatrics, cardiopulmonary and women's health, and research, cancer rehab, and so on. For easy access, I'll be sharing the social media links in the chat shortly. Without much wasting time, I'll hand over the session to Dr. Shweta Sharma. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Nagaraj. On behalf of IAP and Delhi State IAPWC, myself, Dr. Shweta, moderator of today's webinar, warmly welcomes all our respected dignitaries and fellow participants. I will also like to sincerely acknowledge and thank the leadership of IAP and IAPWC for their constant guidance and encouragement that made initiative like this possible on the topic that is especially much needed topic, Path to USA for Physiotherapists. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Dr. Sri Valli. She is an accomplished physical therapist with extensive international experience across the United States, Canada, and India. Currently practicing in the US, she brings a strong foundation in the clinical practice management and rehabilitation sciences. Dr. Valli holds a transitional doctorate in physical therapy and master's in the exercise sciences and is licensed to practice across multiple regions, reflecting her diverse expertise. Beyond her clinical and academic achievements, she has a passionate mentor guiding aspiring physical therapists through licensing pathways in the US and Canada. Her commitment to advancing healthcare combined with her global perspective make her an inspiring voice in the field. We all are very fortunate to have your guidance today, ma'am, and I encourage all the participants to stay engaged during the session and feel free to share their questions in the chat box so that we can address them and discuss them further. Now it's my honor to warmly welcome our speaker, Dr. Srivalli. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Shweta, for the wonderful introduction. Good evening, everybody, for those of you for joining from India, and good morning, everybody, if you're joining from any other country. It is my honor to be here today and present in the IAP regarding the path to USA. To all the aspiring physical therapists, I'll be happy to help and share as much information as I can today. And feel free, like Dr. Shweta mentioned, to put your questions in the chat, and we'll have time in the end to discuss all the questions and to do the best of my abilities. I'm going to share a presentation and we'll quickly get started without further ado. Thank you. So like Dr. Shweta said, my name is Srivalli Chekuri, and I'm a physical therapist. I started my career off in India and then moved to USA, licensed in USA, moved to Canada, licensed in Canada. Now I work in Austin, Texas currently. Trying to share this. Give me 1 second. Let's not.
Ma'am, we can see the screen. You can just click the space bar.
I know it's not letting me. Give me 1 second. Okay, are you able to see the screen now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So today's agenda is talking about what visa options for people from India have to move to the US. and how to get the credential evaluation done, what are the options in FCCPT evaluation, and to summarize in the end, how you can get everything together without wasting a lot of money or time and trying to be a physical therapist efficiently. So I did my bachelor's from BAPMS College of Physiotherapy in India, did my master's in Wichita State University, did my doctorate in Northeastern State University, fully licensed in Canada and US. I currently work in Austin. Outside work, I'm a mom for a teenager and I love playing basketball and to dance. So getting into the visa options, there are quite a few visa options that will help you give the exam here in the US. A few of them that are most popular. I didn't discuss every visa option because there could be many, but these are the most popular options the students are using recently. So first one is F1 or F2. This is nothing but a student visa. If you are a student coming here for the master's degree, you can come on F1 visa by applying to a university to a master's program. And F2 is if you're a spouse of a student here. So coming on F1, the advantage is you can work on campus 20 hours and you can get a CPT if your university allows. Usually the university will allow that after 1 year of starting the program. Coming on F2, you don't have the burden of being a student, but you also cannot work and make any money here in the States, but you are allowed to prepare for the exam and give the exam at your own time and convenience as long as you keep that status. Now, coming to H1 or H4, usually coming on H1 is not realistic. It is called the work visa, and that is not realistic because unless you're a physical therapist, you won't be able to work practically. And to be a physical therapist, you have to pass the exam. But the reason I mentioned that here is because some people have dual careers where they can possibly come on H1 on a different profession that they are in legally. And while they're working on H1, they're still allowed to prepare and give the exam. And H4 is spouse of H1. And while you're on H4, you cannot work. You have to stay at home, prepare for your exam, and give the exam. However, if you are on H4 and your spouse is on H1 and have a I-140 approved, then you will be able to apply for H4 EAD, which will give you permission to work legally in the country. So while you're working, you can definitely prepare and give the exam on H4 if you're on H4 EAD. Now, B1, B2 is nothing but the tourist visa that you all apply to come to the US as tourists. And rest assured, you can still give your exam in that visa. But the only problem with that visa is you can stay here only for 6 months. You cannot stay more than that. And you cannot absolutely work or make money in the country by any means. You just have to visit, give the exam, and go back. There are students that I've known in the past who did that, where you apply for a US visiting visa, prepare for your exam, just come give the exam and go back. And you don't have to have a US address. That is another question that I've had in the past. You can come to a hotel or you can stay at a friend's place and give the exam definitely. O1 is extraordinary abilities. If you are a researcher and you've had a lot of papers published and you've achieved a lot of accolades in your country and you think you're an expert in your industry, you are eligible to apply for O1. Once you get O1 picked up, it is on your own. You should have an employer who can help you file that while you're outside of the US. Once you get that approved, you can definitely work on O1. It is similar to H1, but the biggest difference is how O1 is extraordinary abilities and you're expert in your field, versus H1 is you can just be a PT or some other professional. So while you're on O1, you can work and you can definitely give your exam. Now, L2 is another spousal visa where the spouse is on L1 coming from overseas in a managerial role where the L1 will be working in their own profession, and the spouse of L1 is called L2. They can also have the eligibility to work while on L2 and also prepare and give the exam. And the last option, of course, most promising option, if you have a green card, then you're almost considered, you can do anything in the country, like work as many hours as you want, whichever profession you want, and it does not have to be a professional work. You can do any sort of job. It does not have to be a professional degree. While you're earning, you can prepare for the exam and give the exam. However, when we are all educated outside of US, the US is expecting us to do something called the credential evaluation. Now, what is credential evaluation is the US would like to see if we are by par with their education system and if we can be eligible to give their licensing exam. So when they are checking that, the way to check that is to do credential evaluation. There are few agencies that are here to do those check. So some of those agencies are FCCPT, which is the most popular one. It is Foreign Credentialing Commission on Physical Therapy. CGFNS, which is Commission on Graduates of the Foreign Nursing Schools. It talks about nursing schools because it's most popularly done by nursing students, but it is also the second popular one for physical therapists that can give us credential evaluation. The third one is ICD, which is International Consultants of Delaware. Third is IERF, International Education Research Foundation, and some others that are not very widely used are IEC, ICA, University of Texas at Austin. Now, why am I saying FCCPT and CGFNS are most popular is because when we use these evaluations, there are some states that accept certain evaluations. Every evaluating body has different kinds of evaluations depending on what you want in the end, and each state has different state requirements that we have to go through again. And FCCPT is one organization that is accepted by all the states in the US, and all their evaluations are accepted in any state you want. So now, being in the US, I can tell you, you move around. You don't stay in one place unless you're super lucky. So we don't want to do FCCPT, ICD now. And then if you move to a different state, and if that state does not accept ICD, you would have to redo it through a different agency. So that is why we encourage students to do FCCPT. That way you're done and dusted once for all. So FCCPT is very encouraged. However, FCCPT is also a little expensive for that reason. And people are resorting to CGFNS because it's less expensive, and also it is faster compared to FCCPT. Now, if you know where you're staying and if you know your state accepts CGFNS, there is nothing wrong to do CGFNS. In today's session, we will discuss a little in depth about FCCPT because that is most widely accepted. But feel free to reach out to me if you need any other help with any other agencies and how you have to do that and stuff. Another good thing about FCCPT is once you send the documents to FCCPT, they are there forever on your file. You don't have to resend your documents once sent. So like in my situation, I did Texas evaluation first, and then I had to move to New York evaluation. I did not send a document to them because they could use every document I sent for my Texas evaluation. So that saves us a lot of time and energy to do that. So that's why I encourage FCCPT a lot. So going into details of how evaluations are planned out and what evaluations we have to do. So the different types of evaluations are ECR, which is Educational Credential Review, Type 1 for licensure, Type 1 for immigration, and New York licensure. So I have an image of FCCPT website on the side for you. So once you go there, you just log in and you can play around to see what you see. So the new thing that they added here is to ask what your goal is so they can help you which evaluation is suitable for you. So that is one way to figure out which one suits you. Now, just to go a little bit into each evaluation. Now, educational credential review is done by people who want or seek license in the US, and type 1 for licensure is also done for the same purpose if you seek license in the US. And New York licensure is also to seek license in the US, but only done if you want to apply for New York specifically. Whereas type 1 for immigration is not for licensure, it is for visa purposes, which means if you want to be on H1, if you want to go on O1, if you want to go on L1, which is not very likely because most of our healthcare is within the US and it's not international. Anyways, those kind of visas only need type 1 for immigration. Like if you're a spouse of a H1, or if you're a spouse of a L1, or if you are on a green card or a citizen, type 1 for immigration is not at all required. Please note that. The reason I'm emphasizing that is type 1 for immigration is the hardest evaluation to do, and it's also most expensive. So please do not do that unless you absolutely need it. We'll go to that a little later and go into further depth. But before that, I would like to discuss the other three evaluations a little bit. So going to New York, New York is its own body, and what FCCPT does for New York is FCCPT just collects all the documents for New York board, and they send the documents to New York once they receive all the documents they need. That being said, if you are planning to apply New York licensure, you have to send all the documents to FCCPT and open a file with New York. So once FCCPT evaluation is complete for New York, they will send all the documents there, and the New York board is able to link all your documents if you already opened the file there, because you have to pay for the application fees and open your file by the time when it's close to finishing up with FCCPT. That is why if you look up on FCCPT website, New York evaluation is the cheapest because they don't do anything pretty much, and also fastest because they just collect the documents and send it over. They don't do any evaluation in this body of work. Now, once New York is out of picture, we'll go to ECR and type 1 for licensure. Just a little more info about New York. New York was very popular back in the day. I think, if I'm not wrong, about a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, because that was the easiest evaluation. People did not get any deficiencies and they just right away got approval. And there are so many therapists that started their life and career with New York license. But recently, New York had a change where they said you have to have a 7-year degree. Mark my word, that does not mean you have to have a doctorate degree. You can have any kind of professional degree that you got education for at least 7 years. Just to break that down a little bit, that is bachelor's of 4 years and a master's of 2 years, or a bachelor's of 4 years and a master's of 3 years, or a bachelor's of 5 years and a master's of 2 years. So overall, cumulatively, you have to have 7 years of education. So which is very difficult for a professional that is just starting to work or starting to give the license, because they're mostly students who finish their bachelor's of 4 and then master's of 2. So that is where people lacked. And then people shifted gears from New York to other states. Now, the crowd in the other evaluations have increased tremendously now recently. So that has increased the timelines of evaluations recently. Now, coming to ECR evaluation, ECR and type 1 for licensure, I would say ECR is easiest because you need less credentials for that. For ECR, you need about 150 to 160 credentials when they break it down. For type 1 for licensure, they need about 175, whereas for type 1 for immigration, you need almost 210 credits. That is why I mentioned this is hard to keep up and get approval for. So I always encourage people to try to get ECR because that is the easiest. If you are just finished your bachelor's degree or just finished your master's degree trying to move to the States. Now, when I say try for ECR review, it is not your pick and choice which one you want to do, then everybody will do ECR, right? So the state will accept certain reviews. When you go on FCCPT webpage and click on the state when you're applying, when you click on how to apply and apply the state you need, it will show you at the bottom what evaluation they accept. Just for an example, Texas, Michigan, Delaware, Connecticut are some of the states that accept ECR review, whereas California, New Jersey, these are some of the states that need type 1 for licensure. So if you have Liberty, I would say first go for a state that does ECR review. So that way you can at least get your eligibility quickly and be eligible to give the exam. Once you pass the exam, then you're eligible to endorse your license and work on transferring your license from one place to the other. There is also a myth where people said, oh, if I give my exam for New York, it's easy, and if I give for another state, it's difficult. That is not true, because exam is a national exam, and the exam is same for anybody for any state you're giving it from. And once you pass the exam once and keep up with that license, you are able to endorse it to any state you want. So, how do we get started with the application process? Everything can be submitted online. You don't have to be in the US. They will give you a unique file number through which you'll track status of your application. Once you apply online, the application is very, very self-explanatory. It will ask you some of your educational details, your addresses, and details like that. Now, the good thing about that is if you're in India and you're applying from India, you don't need a US address for that, because unless you want a paper copy, we always took our reports online, so they will send you an email. Once you make the payment, they will give you an assigned file number through which you can track the status, and you can use that throughout your application process, because it will take a few weeks in the sense recently it's taking about 20 to 30 weeks to even get your evaluation. So they request some documents from your school, they request your licensing board documents, they request your personal documents. So the bottom line among all these documents is anything that comes from you, please check if they're requesting for notary, because some of them ask for notarization and some of them is just filling the application, signing and sending. And anything from the school should go from your school. Otherwise, FCCPT will deny it right away. So please go to your school, get it signed and sealed and dated, and tell them to send it. You cannot send it from your end because the FCCPT expects documents directly from school. And if when they say licensing authorities, there are some students that hold license. Like I've learned recently, people from Maharashtra has a licensing board in India and they hold a license once they're PTs. So make sure you send all those details to FCCPT or make your licensing board send it. Otherwise, you will not be issued a license. You have to disclose any licenses that you have in any other countries across the world when you're applying for this. So there are a few services called plans. We will talk about this a little bit later. Because these services are helpful once your evaluations are done. So let's talk about evaluation a little bit. Once you send all your documents in, your evaluation will get started. Now, the cool thing about that is once your file number is assigned to you and you log in, you will clearly see what documents they received and what documents are still pending. Unless all the pending documents status change to received, the evaluation won't get started. So please keep a track of that. So once your evaluation gets started, and it'll take about 24, 25 weeks roughly lately. Sometimes I've heard that people are taking about 28 weeks to get that done. You'll get your evaluation report back. And in that, most of the people will receive that they have a deficiency. When you have a deficiency, they will give you the list of deficiencies you need to fulfill. So when you have that, most of the courses are online. You don't have to go to any colleges to do it. You can do it from any part of the world. So the question is, people are getting stuck where to do those deficiencies and if FCCPT will accept those deficiencies. That is when you talk about plan services, where you can take any of these services, plan incremental, plan standard, or plan plus. I've had the fees and other details here about those services. So once you take those services, they will try to give you pre-approval of the courses, and they will give you a list of colleges from where you can do those courses. Once you have that, you're rest assured that FCCPT has given you approval for certain colleges. You can do it from that colleges and finish up the course. Usually the courses that you get is at the most a semester long. So once you enroll, you will just finish those courses, and reapply for a reevaluation. Now, the difference between these three services, when you take plan incremental, it is just one phone call. For example, if you have one or two questions or doubts, they'll clarify that, and that's about it. And if you take plan standard, they will give you pre-approval or courses and work with you throughout your reevaluation or work with you throughout your course curriculum process. Versus the difference between standard and plan plus has an additional reevaluation included. If you take this, your reevaluation might be a little faster than if you take a plan standard and apply for reevaluation later. So the service timelines, like I said, is listed here for different evaluations. You have about 12 months after you start the FCCPT file. Once you open the file, they will wait for almost a year to get and receive all the documents. If you do not send them within the year, then everything will be lapsed and you might have to pay again. So please make sure that you send the documents timely. So the average timelines for a review, once you paid in full and the documents have been received, is this. For type 1 for immigration, type 1 for licensure and educational review, you need about 25 weeks. Lately, it's taking more than 30 weeks. Now, there is another evaluation that we didn't talk about, which is the PTA, which is physical therapy assistant. So in the US, the assistants also need to pass an exam. And for you to pass that exam, you do have to get your credentials evaluated. Now, that being said, there are some states that will accept the same PT evaluation for you to be a PTA as well. So if you apply for those states, that is one advantage. And also, please keep in mind, not all the states will allow foreign trained PTs to give the PTA exams. There is only about 6 to 7 states that will allow you to give PTA exam if you are a foreign trained PT. Now, reactivation means if your file is lapsed and you need to reactivate that, that is the time that takes. Re-evaluation is once you get your evaluation back and you finish some courses and you want to reevaluate it, then it takes about 14 weeks. Now, duplicate report means, like I was just talking to you earlier, when you are licensed in a state or you're applying for a license in one state and you want also your FCCPT report sent to another state, then you request for a duplicate report, which takes about 3 weeks. Now, New York credential verification, like I mentioned earlier, they collect documents, so it's less time, it's 3 weeks. Now, coursework tool update. What is coursework tool is the question. So there are certain criteria of coursework tools based on which they evaluate your education. So the coursework tool starts as early as coursework tool 3, 4, 5, 6. The latest one is coursework tool 6. So if you are a recent graduate, most of the states consider coursework tool 6, which is difficult. Like as the coursework tool number increases, the evaluation is a little difficult. Now that also is done by the state. You cannot pick and choose which coursework tool you want. And also some states go by your year of graduation. Like for example, if you're graduated in the year 2008, then you could be falling under coursework tool 4. If you're graduating after 2012, you could be falling under coursework tool 5. And if it is after 2018, then you could be doing coursework tool 6. Now that is followed by a few states. Other states universally do coursework tool 5, coursework tool 6. Most of the states are slowly trying to gear towards coursework tool 6, so they're universally doing coursework tool 6. So type 1 renewals. Type 1 renewals means the type 1 for immigration that I just mentioned, where we get a healthcare worker certificate to get your H-1B or any work visa. This is for the USCIS. You don't apply for the state specifically, and you have to renew it every 5 years. So that is what that is. USCIS status letter is again for the USCIS if they need a letter stating your situation or your professional status in the country. Any certified documents that you request, like for example, if FCCPT has to send, in my case, to Wes when I moved to Canada, then I requested for certified documents from FCCPT because I was not able to procure documents from India. So those documents are called certified documents. Now, this is the biggest question I get from students: where do I have to take TOEFL exam? It depends on the state you're applying again. Some states require TOEFL and also require certain scores to even consider that you finished TOEFL exam. You also require TOEFL for type 1 for immigration, which is the healthcare worker certificate. But the work around that is if you get your master's degree from the States or Canada, they might waive your, they might waive your your TOEFL exam. So the states or countries that you are educated when that will give you an exception for TOEFL has been listed here. If you're having any bachelor's degree from any of the following countries or even master's degree for that matter, you can be waived of TOEFL if you've done education in US, UK, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, except Quebec. So if you're also a graduate of CAPT accredited physical therapy education program, that is another way to waive your TOEFL. California has some exemptions for TOEFL. Applicants who have been awarded a bachelor's degree or higher in physical therapy education program from a college, university, or professional training school in Australia, any part of Canada other than Quebec, Ireland, New Zealand, UK, or the US. All graduates whose first degree in PT was not completed in the US and who do not meet the above exceptions must take TOEFL exam if you're seeking license in California. This is just an example, but there are different states and you can go to the state boards to see what are the requirements. So what happens after the evaluation is done? So we're talking about evaluation, courses, and reevaluation. So once your reevaluation is done, you will get eligibility to give the NPTE exam, most unlikely after the first evaluation, but you'll get it after the reevaluations. You complete the deficiencies that you get, a semester long that we talked about. You enroll as a non-degree student because you're not seeking for a degree, you're trying to complete your deficiencies. Then you apply for a reevaluation to get eligibility. So when do you start NPTE preparation? There is no right or wrong time. The sooner, the better always. The longer you get, the easier your preparation will get. But ideally, if you start preparing when you start your evaluation, you will be mostly ready by the time you get your eligibility. Because if we think about the timelines, about 20 weeks or 30 weeks for your evaluation, semester is about 12 weeks, which is 35 weeks, you finish your deficiencies, and then you apply for reevaluation. That is another 20 weeks. So all in all, plus or minus, it's about an year worth of wait from evaluation to reevaluation getting eligibility. So if you prepare during that 1 year, I think that will be a very, very decent time to be ready for the exam. What happens after getting NPTE eligibility? So after you get your eligibility from FCCPT, where they say you're good to go, you can give your exam, you apply for the state. You have to apply for at least one state when you do FCCPT because they'll give you a free report for that state. So whichever state you chose, try to apply for that state and fulfill the state requirements. Now, that being said, every state has slightly different requirements and they keep changing with time. So you have to keep checking when you're trying to apply it. Currently, the easiest for international students will be Connecticut, Florida, and Delaware, considering the requirements of each of those states. Now, when I said slightly different requirements, the changes will be some states ask for TOEFL, some states don't. Some states require jurisprudence exam, which is called the law exam, and some states don't. And some states require unique fingerprints and things like that. But when you do require fingerprints kind of thing, you have to see how you can make it possible if you're in India, because some of the states will expect you to do it from within the state. So you have to keep in mind of all that before you apply, because you do apply and pay application fees, which is valid only for a year for specifically to one state. So be careful when you're applying to the state. What is the next step after getting approval from the state? You register for the exam on FSBPT portal. Now, this is a new portal where the actual exam registration happens, and your results will come on this FSBPT portal. When you are applying for your FCCPT, along the way in the application process, they will make you prepare or open an FSBPT account. So that will link up to you for the rest of your professional career till you pass your exam. So you register for the exam on that portal, wait for an ATT letter from the state. Once you register, the state will send you a letter in a few weeks. Once you receive that letter, you have to pay and book your Prometrics center, and then you give your exam for the schedule. Now, what happens after that? Ever wondered and dreamed of? This is the best screen we were waiting for, right? So you'll pass the exam. That is what every one of us wants. And once you pass the exam, that is where your professional career will begin. And here on, we will decide if you want to endorse, if you want to start working in that state, if you want other evaluations. Now, I want to add one thing where people who need type 1 for immigration. So for type 1 for immigration, you need a master's degree at least to apply for it. So you do not require license for it. If you already have a master's degree, I recommend you to apply for type 1 for immigration if you're planning on H1B or L1 or any kind of individual visa of your own. Please start your type 1 for immigration too, along with your credential evaluation, because that also takes longer. Unless you're doing a degree now and you would get more credentials, I would ask you to wait. If you're not doing a degree and if you want the evaluation done, do it together. That way, by the time you pass, you at least are through the evaluation. You know what reevaluation requires. Finish those courses and complete the reevaluation. Because to apply on your own H1B, you need type 1 for immigration. However, the work around that is you can definitely be a student, and while on your OPT, if you pass your exam, you can start working as a PT while you work towards your type 1 for immigration. Now, being on a student on OPT, you don't need your healthcare worker certificate. So that is the best route many people will choose, because that will give them time to finish whatever they need to finish by the time they get to your H1B. These are some of the URLs that I want to mention. One is the FCCPT website, and the other is FSBPT. If anybody wants to take a screenshot or copy paste or however you want to do, and I would appreciate if Dr. Shweta will post that in the chat as well, if possible, so that way people can get a hold of those links. Okay, thank you very much for your time and patience and for considering having me here today. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So we have certain questions from the participants and attendees. One of the question is IELTS also needed?
No, IELTS is, if the university asks for it, you can give IELTS, because certain universities in the US for masters accept IELTS. It's not needed, but they accept IELTS along with TOEFL. I highly don't encourage giving IELTS because of the fact that you again have to give TOEFL for FCCPT evaluations. So it is better to give TOEFL over IELTS. But if you already have IELTS score, then you can definitely use it for your universities.
Okay. Another question is again from the Hetwi. She was asking, do I need to give NPTE for studying in USA?
You don't need NPTE for studying in USA. NPTE is the National Physical Therapy Exam, which means that you want to be a physical therapist in the US and practice physical therapy. Then you have to give the exam and be practicing clinician. But for studying, you don't need it. Now, that brings me to also a point where people come for their master's degree and don't want to be a clinician, don't want to work and treat patients. Then you don't have to give NPTE. You can become a PhD. You get your PhD and you go into academics, teaching, and all that stuff. There are students who are PTs that never gave NPTE if they don't want to, but your clinical career won't be there. You need NPTE specifically for your clinical career.
Thank you so much. I think Hetvi, you have a clarity now. And another question is from Bhanu Pratap. He's asking, ma'am, how can we get admission in masters as a physiotherapist?
Back in the day, that's a very good question. Back in the day, they used to have masters in physical therapy, but unfortunately now you don't have masters in physical therapy. You have to come as a student using exercise science or exercise or kinesiology. Those are the two most popular degrees that you do. And once you finish kinesiology or exercise science, then you get a transitional DPT. Most of the PTs are in the US wants to be TDPT. The reason being they are encouraging all the PTs would be a doctorate degree holder sooner or later. So that's why everybody is going for TDPT after their master's program. So the master's program is really a tie into your healthcare profession. That's all. You don't have a physical therapy degree.
Another question is like, what is the cost of all these process?
So the costs are broken down, right? So we talked about a lot of things. Evaluation, what evaluation you want, and then reevaluation, and then your deficiencies costing, and then your exam, your application fee for the state, and your exam fee, your prometric center fee. So all in all, the number sounds big, but then you're paying $1,000, $500, $1,000 here, $800 there. So overall, I would say roughly about $10,000 from end to end is what I'm talking about. For evaluation, reevaluation, exam process, your course based on how many courses. Like, for example, don't quote me on that. If you have 2 courses, you might pay less than that. And if you have 6 courses that are deficient, then you pay way more than 10,000 overall. So
Okay, another one question Zakira was asking, she's asking, no, Ritisha. She's asking, ma'am, you have said that 7 years of other courses is valid, is so that is from medical field only, or from the other any other profession.
like, for example, you have to have a basic bachelor degree. This is a physical therapy exam, right? You cannot go to an engineering school and say, I have 7-year degree and I want to give NPTE. Like, they will not give you eligibility because there are prerequisites you have to meet. However, if you have a basic bachelor degree in physical therapy, and let's say you did an MBA, of healthcare management or something, which is still related to us, but on the management side of it. You can still consider that, but the number of credits that they consider will be less. So they might give you some deficiencies. And if you finish that deficiencies and submit, they might be able to give you the eligibility.
And one more question is, we can't enter any country without taking an exam. We can't enter
You
any country.
can. You can come into US without an exam. I didn't give my exam before I came to the US. You just have to have a valid visa. They don't care why you're coming in as long as you have a valid visa. Immigration is totally a different ball game compared to your academics, right? Immigration people are there to see if you're coming into the country legally. They don't care what exams you give or what exams you're giving. All they care is, do you have a valid visa to come into the country, and are you following all the legal immigration guidelines to stay, and are you leaving on time? That is the B1 that I talked about. You can come as tourist, literally, give the exam and go back within 6 months, then nobody will have a problem.
And one more question is there that one of the attendees asking, many universities has closed the TDPT.
Many universities are closed TDPT for probably internationals. That is why I said master's program is a bridge. You have to come do your master's program. You cannot directly get TDPT from India and kind of enroll and get your F1 visa on TDPT. I think there are hardly 1 or 2 universities that are doing that. But once you come on master's program here, finish your master's program, you'll have so many universities to do your TDPT. The challenge though is some TDPT programs require you to have license and some don't. So if you have license, then you'll have more opportunities for more universities. TDPT can also be done online. You don't have to go to the university. So that helps you. If you're working in a different state as a physical therapist, you can complete your TDPT online. There are some in person. It definitely depends on your personal situation at that time, how you want to pursue it.
And also, one of the attendees asking, what are the chances of getting deficiency after the 4 years of bachelor's degree with 6.5 internship and the 2 years of masters? I mean, like he or she is the masters. So, what are the
That
chances
is
of
the
getting deficiencies here?
That is the sad truth. 100% of the people will get deficiencies. Well, ECR, you might be lucky sometimes. I have helped over thousands of students in this, and I think I've seen like one student didn't get a deficiency. Also, because there is a friend who had exactly same degrees and education, and they had their definition, so they completed them before. They're smart and completed it before they applied for evaluations, and they overpassed it. That's very few. Sometimes even if we have the same exact curriculum, it depends on the person who's evaluating your degree. Sometimes you can get lucky, but for type 1 for immigration and licensure, it is almost impossible that you don't get a deficiency. In my case, I finished my bachelor's in India, master's in US, doctorate in US. In spite of having 2 US degrees, I did my type 1 for immigration for the first time. I still had 3 deficiencies. It broke my heart, but I have to do it. I don't have a choice.
But there's no such hospital or the company which is hiring the directly, taking the directly. It's not. There's no such institution or company.
Directly in the sense, sorry. Can you elaborate your question?
This is a question by one of the attendee, Zakira. She's mentioned that any
Okay.
of the institute or hospital who will help us in like direct, who can hire us
They will
directly.
hire you. They will hire you directly. I don't know what you mean directly. They'll hire you. There is direct hiring. There is a lot of direct hiring, but you have to have your license.
Okay.
Nobody will
Once
hire you
you
without a
get
license.
there, then there are many companies over there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Even from India, like for example, if you come on a business tourist visa, you give your exam. I have known some people who did that. They finish their exam, pass their exam. They're in India. They try to find employers who can sponsor their H-1B. The only extra challenge is, for example, if they have two applicants, and like I'm sitting in the US and you're sitting in India, they prefer to give opportunity to somebody in the US because you can bypass the extra step of going to H1B interviews and all that kind of stuff before they start work, right? If your H1B is picked up, you can start work immediately while you're in the country. That is the only challenge, but it is not wrong to be hired from overseas. The employer should have the patience to wait and leverage to wait till all the visa process is done properly.
Okay. And if somebody wants to work in the research area, still they need to give NPT exam.
No, that's what I was saying. You can go through PhD, you can not be a clinician for the rest of your career, and you can just be in research, you can be in academia, teach students, be a university professor. Nobody will ask you NPT license if you want to be there for the rest of your career.
Okay. Are there any such scholarship programs also?
There will be scholarships, but again, it depends on at what point in career are you and what is your visa status. We will have very few though. There are people who got PhD funding. And if you are a research assistant in some universities, but that you won't know unless you get admission and you come here. If you're a research assistant in certain universities, get a full 20-hour job, you might get a full ride scholarship, at least for your fees or tuition. On top of that, they'll of course pay you. The research assistant positions are mostly paid positions. So I think all in all, you'll have a full ride through school and you'll get some amount of money for your living.
Another question is from Dr. Bhushan. He's asking, what is the validity period for the exam for the freshers? Is there any validity period?
Once you pass the exam, that's for your life, if
Okay.
that's what you're meaning. And the only clause is you have to keep your license active, you work or not. Like, for example, I'm working in the US, I'm still keeping my Canadian license active. If I let it lapse, then I would have to retake the exam after a certain amount of time.
Okay. I think most of the questions are being answered. One more question. It's Mohammed Saif who's asking, based on my current stage as a BPT student from India, what should be my next 12 to 24 months roadmap? Like if my goal is to come to the USA as a physiotherapist.
If you've graduated, I would say if you have your transcripts and your degree certificates and everything ready, I would say start your FCCPT evaluation immediately if you don't want to delay the processes. And while you do that, you can also apply for F1 program. I mean, F1 is the most economical way to come to the US. People will say, oh, I don't have 30 lakhs in my bank account to do my master's degree. I want to just give the exam. But you also should understand like what is suitable for you. If you come on F1, yes, you're taking a loan coming for master's, but also you're working 20 hours if you get a job and you get OPT for 3 years where you can straight away work. The second option is you can do FCCPT evaluation on the side, prepare for your exam, there are so many courses. There's Study Buddy, there's Final Frontier, there's PT Final Exam. There are so many courses that you can join and enroll and study for your exam. Give the exam on business visa or come on tourist visa and give it. But you should also understand if you don't pass the exam in your first attempt, then you are forced to go back in 6 months and you have to come back. So you are almost paying the same amount of money. Instead of paying for your master's, you're paying for your travel, you're paying for your stay, you're paying for your come and go, and you don't earn a degree. For master's, you earn a degree in the end. And if you also fail, you can give the exam again. And just so you know, I didn't mention this, the international pass percentage for NPT exam is usually 20 to 25%. It is the sad truth, but it is a tough exam. It is hard to pass.
I think another the same question. The person is in second year of his masters and is asking that should he can apply for the credential evaluation or should he wait for the completion of the masters?
If you're applying for ECR, you can definitely apply for it because you won't get that many deficiencies and you'll usually meet the credits with your bachelor's degree. You might get one or two deficiencies, and if it depends on when you want to really start coming or thinking about coming to the US. So anytime you're planning for US, you have to have a roadmap backwards instead of going forwards. Like, when will I complete? What's my next step? What's my next step? Instead of that, I would say I want to be a PT in 2028. So then backwards 1 year, I have to give the exam by 2027. So I can work on my visa and all that to be in the US as a PT. Now, if I have to complete that, when should I apply for evaluation? That's 1 year. So I have to apply in 2026. But if your roadmap is I have to go to the US in 2030, then you can wait till you finish and then apply.
Another question is I have completed my masters and have 10 plus years of experience. What should be the option also in I am in my 40s? Do age have some restriction with that?
No.
Okay.
You can give your exam at any time, come here at any time. Maybe if you ask my suggestion, I would say if you're in the academia in the last 10 years, I don't know what experience you have, then try for PhD programs, which are funded. That way you can start your career and you don't have to restart your career. You can continue your career while you give your NPT exam. But I also want to mention, which I didn't mention in the previous questions, is when I was saying apply for your FCCPT evaluation, now the situation of US, like all of us know, visas are a thing, right? Getting visa appointments, getting visa approvals is so hard. So you have to keep in mind that if you do your FCCPT evaluation while you're in India, you're spending $3,000, $5,000 between evaluation, reevaluation, and doing the professional courses. Are you having that financial leverage? What if your visa gets denied? So are you reapplying for your visa till you get approval? Then that's fine. But if you're like, I'll try once, if I don't get it, I'll change my direction, then don't do your FCCPT evaluation before your visa approval, because then you'll waste a lot of money.
And very frequently asked question is how many attempts are we allowed for the exam?
6 attempts.
6 attempts. Okay.
But don't wait till 6 attempts pass on your first attempt, is what I say, students. There are students who say, oh, I'm just giving it a try. I didn't prepare. That's just putting your money in the drain. Don't do that. Please prepare. Don't give it a try. Please prepare with an intention to pass.
One of the attendee has asked, I have completed my master's in cardiorespiratory physiotherapy from India, want to pursue career in research in USA and currently working in John Hopkins University.
John Hopkins University in the US?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So is he working as a PT or a researcher?
He has not mentioned that, but he
Yeah.
has completed his master's in cardiorespiratory.
Okay. And I'm not sure what is his question. I thought he gave me information. Sorry. Can you ask your question again? I mean, you're already a researcher in John Hopkins and you completed your master's in cardiorespiratory. So are you asking me if you can give your exam? Yes, you can. Or if you want to pursue, John Hopkins is one of the best. So you can just keep on going. Good luck with that.
So that's all from the questions side, ma'am. And I hope all the questions are answered very well. And I'm very grateful that Dr. Nidhi Kalra is with us. Good evening, ma'am.
Yeah, good evening, Dr. Shweta. Good evening, Srivelli. I don't know what is the time in your country, but as per Indian time, I can wish you good evening for that. Yeah,
I think
thank
it's
you so much.
time here.
Okay, thank you so much. I mean, it was a great session, very insightful, I would say. And all the questions, all the queries were also very patiently handled by your kind self. So I'm highly grateful that we could connect and conduct this webinar with you. Thank you so much, and looking forward for I think more such webinars, maybe on certain other issues that are being faced by the Indian students in US. That would be a great help for the students who are thinking of moving there, especially with the current scenario going on. So thank you so much. Looking forward to have more such conversations with you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you, Dr. Nidhi, and thank you, Dr. Shweta. Thank you, everybody, for patiently attending and staying through the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. And once again, on behalf of Delhi State IAPWC, I put forward my gratitude to the President IAP, Dr. Sanjeev Jha, National Head IAPWC, Dr. Ruchi Vashne ma'am, Zonal Head IAPWC, Dr. Neeti Khurana, President DIP, Dr. Pooja Sethi, and of course, a sincere thanks to the entire Delhi State IAPWC team. Special appreciation to Dr. Nidhi Kalra, Dr. Aparna Sharma, Dr. Vidu, and Dr. Jasmine for their dedicated effort. And on behalf of IIP, WC and IIP, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed speaker, Dr. Srivalli, also for such an insightful and inspiring session on the opportunity of the physiotherapist in the USA. And I hope this valuable guidance will help all us. Thank you all the attendees for the active participation. It was indeed a very highly and enriching session. We look forward to make such more educational information such as in the future. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. Thank you once again, ma'am.
Thank you. See you.